stick around to the end because there's something you missed in the video that I'm going to tell you. So stay tuned.
All right, here we go.
All right. I guess we're live. Are we
Yeah,
live
we
here? Hey. So Harley released the Pan America details today. It'll be available in showrooms in May, I guess. And we're here with Dewey from DeweyRides. So I'm a Harley guy, and we've got Dewey here, who's an ADV guy. So we're going to take a look at all the specs on the new Harley Pan America and do a little compare and contrast. So, Dewey, what's your background with ADV bikes?
Sure. I've been riding ADV bikes for a little over 10 years now. I started on a V-Strom 650, and on that, the big trip that I took was a month-long trip to Alaska. After that, I got a BMW F800 GS, which I still have, and I do a lot of adventure touring on. And I also rode a BMW 1200 GS for a 3-week trip around Morocco.
Nice. So fair to say you've been off-road on a bike.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of off-road. I'm no hero. I'm no Graham Jarvis by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm your average guy who does adventure bike things and rides off-road.
Nice. I personally, the only time I go off-road is if I'm wrecking, and thankfully that hasn't happened a whole lot. So, hey, let's dig into the Pan America. I've got it up here, and they've got 2 models available, the Pan America 1250 and the 1250 Special. Did you watch today's reveal video?
I did watch the reveal video, and I actually really enjoyed the history part at the beginning. I thought they did a great job on that part of the release video. Yeah.
Personally, I didn't know Harley done any off-road stuff other than there weren't roads in 1903, really. But yeah, and then, the reminder of World War II, they had, all the W bikes that all the guys rode overseas, all our service members, and then they came home and wanted the same bike. And that's apparently when they came out with the first touring bikes about 10 years later, right?
Yeah.
I think I saw 1956 was the first touring bike, kind of like a Road King.
Yeah, I think somewhere in there, yeah, it was. It looked a lot like their World War II bike with luggage on it to me.
But so what do you think of the style on this Pan America?
I'm really a little torn on the style. I really like the side profile of it. I think it's got a good side profile. I don't know about that headlight and that front end. I think that's going to be a really polarizing piece for them, and people are either going to love it or hate it.
I think the front end kind of looks like a Road Glide. Let me pull up a picture of one. So if I go to Harley's website, so there's your side profile, and then if we rotate this, I kind of think it looks like a futuristic Tron version of the Road Glide with that. Instead of a dual headlight, it's got dual headlight elements, but there's no real big circles around them. I think it's a hit.
It's a departure from what all the other big adventure bike manufacturers are doing. They all have that Dakar racer look going, and this one kind of departs from that. So it'll be interesting to see how the adventure community either takes to it or doesn't.
Yeah, I've got a picture of the BMW R1250 GS here. Yeah, it definitely has that big and small headlight look over here, and then that outcropping that becomes sort of a front fender overhang, whereas the Harley doesn't. It has a little bit of it, but it doesn't stick nearly as far out. So it's got
not at all.
It looks visually smaller, but kind of less aggressive at the same time, I think.
Yeah, it took less cues from the dirt bike side of things, with the big tall front fender that sticks out. Big adventure bikes definitely try to draw from that look.
Yeah, I think Jason Momoa was excited that the bike was out now. Said he'd been looking forward to it for years, and they showed him jumping it. So at least it's got some chops, right?
Yeah, I think Harley really did their homework on this. There's a lot of things that they nailed on it. They, spec'd out the suspension really, really well for it.
But they don't list the suspension travel on their website.
Yeah, they do. Or I saw somewhere, I thought it was 7.9 inches.
Well, BMW has the 7.4 and the 7.9 inches of suspension travel over in data and equipment. They listed out right about here, I think. Suspension travel, 7.5 in the front and 7.9 in the back. I didn't see that in the Pan America specs.
Yeah, and that is also the entry-level BMW. The the BMW Adventure, which is the next spec up that has a bigger fuel tank, also has another 1 inch of suspension travel with it.
Oh, even better. I searched it. I found a ground clearance of 8.3 inches, which sort of speaks to that 8-inch suspension travel.
Right. And that's why I said I think they were right in there and somewhere between 7.5 and 8 inches on the suspension travel, which is a great spot to be in.
Yeah. So we have class competitive there. The other big one. So I have a Pan America video that I put out a month or so ago, and one of the biggest questions was weight. And we know from the specs now that the Harley is going to weigh 503 pounds dry, 527 dry for the special, and then 534 and 559 weight in running order, which for Harley would be with a full tank of gas, oil, etc.
Sure.
So I think that's right in line. It's a little heavier than I was hoping for. I think in my first video I said 500 pounds was what they should be shooting for.
But they got there on that loaded weight. You know, it's in the right level for that class. The big BMW is about that weight. The Multistrada is about that weight. The Super Tenere is about that weight. I think the KTM is a little bit lower.
We have all those pages up, so let's take a quick look. There it is. No, that's height. Length, height. Total weight. Unladen weight. Fully fueled, 549 pounds. So that's the BMW. It's right in line. It's within a good Big Mac. The Super Tenere.
Within whatever most of us are carrying around extra to begin with.
Right. So the Super Tenere, wet weight 584. So it's got it's a little heavy.
Yep, and that's the big complaint. That's the big complaint everybody has with that one is the weight, and it carries its weight high. That's going to be interesting to see how the Harley dynamics work out and how it rides. And nobody can judge it until they get a chance to ride it. The BMW with the Boxer motor keeps its weight really low, and so it doesn't feel anywhere near as heavy as it is, whereas the Super Tenere carries its weight really high in the chassis, and so it feels really top heavy, and you notice that weight a lot when you ride it.
Yeah, it's hard to tell here with the body cladding where the center of gravity would be, but you do have the big crankcase here, and then I assume the engine comes up in here somewhere. So yeah, the Harley rather, it's V-twin, so it's got a heavy crankcase sitting down low, and then those cylinders spread out like that. What I thought was funny from the video is it looks like the engine is clad in Pontiac Aztec style cladding. Even though it's a liquid-cooled bike, they want it to look like some sort of futuristic V-twin that's air-cooled, even though we know it's liquid-cooled. As you can see a radiator right there.
And I think they're definitely trying to take it in a different styling cue than the other Harleys, but they're trying to make it unmistakably a Harley at the same time. I think they did a great job with that part of it.
Yeah, with the V-twin, they keep the old-style Harley guys happy, and then it's got slightly racier lines. This sort of looks like an Indian Scout tank to me. Maybe they cribbed Indian's homework, and then they grafted this sharp nose on the front of it.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned the KTM Super Adventure, and we've got a picture of one here. This looks like a much narrower bike. I mean, look at that front tire. That thing looks like it belongs on a 10-speed Huffy.
That's the thoroughbred off-roader in this class for sure. It's going to have probably the most suspension travel, maybe the most horsepower, and probably the lightest weight. So it's really, performance-wise, it's the one to beat probably.
So I just stuck my foot in my mouth. It's also more expensive.
Yeah, it's no joke. But ready to race is their motto. You get what you pay for.
Well, hey, if you're taking it off-road, you want the best parts there so you don't have to break down and fix it and replace with more fresh parts.
Yeah, and you can really tell on this one, you may notice that this one has a 21-inch front wheel where all of the other ones have a 19-inch front wheel. And that really speaks to its off-road prowess.
Yeah, I would think you'd want something like this back tire here, smaller wheel with more sidewall. Is that not the case off-road?
Yes and no. In the rear, it's nice. In the front, you really want that height because it rolls over rocks and obstacles and ruts and trees a lot easier than a small tire.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So what else stuck out to you in the video?
I believe it has more horsepower than the BMW. It's almost to the Multistrada, which is really almost less of an adventure bike and more of a touring bike, in that it's so sporty and fast that you really use it almost like a sport tour and the ability to go down some gravel roads if you want to. And they put themselves right up to that level of performance. I think this thing is going to be something that you could comfortably load up with whatever gear you wanted and ride across the US and then do a few dirt roads to see sites that you wanted to see along the way.
Yeah, I was looking at the specs, and I saw 150 horses and 94 foot-pounds of torque. More interestingly, I saw a 9,000 RPM peak for the horsepower.
Now, I don't know in Harley world, is that good or bad? I assume that's probably more high-revving than their street bikes.
So a V-twin is kind of like a V8, and the more cylinders, usually the less revs you get out of it. So anything with 9,000 RPMs screams it's not a V-twin anymore. But in this case, it really is a V-twin. The Street Glide that I own, I think it redlines at 5 or 5,500 RPM. So this one's got quite a bit more headroom.
Yeah, my old Triumph redlined at 13,000, and my current BMW goes up to about 11,000. So.
Oh, wow. Then my KZ theoretically can go to 9,000, but I don't dare push it because that bike's too old and too hard to find parts for. Did you notice that the Pan America has an optional adjustable ride height and adaptive suspension?
I did. I really like the adjustable load leveling. I believe that's one BMW and maybe Ducati have it. They're probably the only ones that do. And that's a great thing. So when you load it down, you don't have to get out tools and try to adjust your suspension to get the back end to not be sagged down while you're trying to off-road. So that's a really great feature. I really don't know how the automatic lowering system is going to work when you come to a stop. I really hope that Harley makes that something that you can disable in the process. When you're off-roading, I don't know, when you come up to stop and there's a rock that you're trying to get over, you don't want that suspension lowering while you're trying to get up there.
Oh, no, that would be horrible.
Happens, that's when you come to a stop off-roading, is when you get to something really technical and really big and you have to go really slow. And that's where you end up putting your feet down, and you don't want the bike lowering onto whatever you're trying to get up and over. So as long as that's something that can be turned off in an off-road mode or something like that, I think it would be great for a lot of guys who are like me, who aren't really tall guys and struggle with some of these big adventure bikes, just riding them around town because they're so tall to get up to the seats on them.
Yeah, I'm never flat-footing an adventure bike. It's just not going to happen. I think I need a pocket step stool to carry along with me so I can get on the thing and off of it.
You learn to do the Captain Morgan thing where you put one leg up.
Yeah, I did notice that with the tech, they have the RDRS, the reflexive defensive rider system that Harley started putting on their bikes in 2020. So that's got a Bosch 6-axis IMU for cornering stability and cornering ABS and traction control. So I assume it would work with lean angles, and sort of it knows, hey, I'm on an incline. Let's not lower the suspension right now. Maybe you have to be on level ground for that to actually lower down at a stop.
Yeah, I don't know. That's one of those things. In an intro video, they don't cover the nitty gritty of how that works. Same with the ABS. With these big bikes, ABS is a must, but when you're off-roading, you want to be able to turn that back wheel ABS off, because you need to be able to lock up that rear wheel to slide around corners and make tight turns.
Right.
So I imagine if they're using Bosch hardware, it's probably going to have the same functions that everybody else does, where you have an off-road ABS mode that lets the front ABS still work a little bit and turns the rear off so you can slide that rear tire.
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes, and they did note an off-road mode, a sport mode, and a rain mode, so that the assumption is there's a fourth normal mode. So I would assume that when you're in off-road mode, it probably lets loose the rear ABS so that you can do those drifts. It
should do that, and it should let you spin the rear tire up a bit when you need it, because sometimes you just need to keep it spinning to throw mud out of the grooves in the tires. So if it's got an off-road mode, that's really going to be all it needs. But when you have 150 horsepower, traction control is absolutely necessary. There's a handful of guys who might be able to ride those things with their traction control completely off, but most of us aren't those guys. 150 horsepower on dirt is just crazy talk.
Yeah, my Street Glide has about twice the weight and only 2/3 the horsepower, if that. So when it comes to spinning the rear wheel and slinging mud, it's not doing that.
Yeah,
I have more torque. I have the torque beat.
Yeah, a motorcycle like the Multistrada, it actually tunes down the horsepower from the 160 that it makes. And when you go into off-road mode, I think it drops it down to 110 or 115 max horsepower, just because you just can't use that power off-road anywhere.
Oh, yeah, it becomes unusable, huh?
It becomes more of a detriment because you give it just a little too much throttle and that thing will huck you into the next
nannies
village.
kick in and it pulls you back. Nobody wants that. So what else stuck out to you about the Pan America?
Well, I'm going to point out the one thing that I am really unsure of with this. This is my big red flag.
Okay, before we do that, what page should I be on the website here?
Hold up to the view of the bike. That's a great view of it.
All right.
And you're a Harley guy. I don't really know my Harleys, but I know a little bit. And the oil cooler being mounted way down low on the front, right there.
And that is where Harley puts oil coolers.
And that is a huge worry for me because, one, that's exposed to rocks and things, especially on the standard model. Now, if you pull up the other model, it has a bit of an armor bash plate on it.
Yeah, I did notice that in the video.
But it also still has slits cut in it because it's got to get air going to it.
Right.
And when I did, if you do an Alaska trip on something like this, when you get up onto the Dalton Highway, or I've come across this a couple of different times on different trips through Montana and other northern states, they're dirt roads. They put calcium chloride down to try to keep the dust from getting so bad. It acts like a concrete.
And it clogs those air inlets.
It caking that whole oil cooler up to the point that then you end up overheating because it's not doing its job.
Oh.
And you can't block it to protect it because then it's not getting airflow. And that seems like a really dangerous and vulnerable spot on an adventure bike to try to put an oil cooler. And that's the one thing that would really scare me about this.
Yeah, I have to wonder if that's actually an oil cooler or... Yeah, so right here, this pretty clearly shows that there's fins there. So I hope they've come up with some way of keeping it clear. Maybe they're expecting you to ride through rivers and creeks and clear it back out.
Yeah, but the problem is, some stuff and some mud and stuff gets in there and no amount of water. You got to get in there with a pressure washer and soap and try to clean it out.
No, don't use a pressure washer. No pressure washers. Don't use them on bikes. No, that's horrible advice. Don't listen to him. Don't ever use a pressure washer on your bike. Only a fine-tooth comb or toothbrush. That's what us Harley guys use to clean our bikes.
You've never had to get caked off mud out.
No. I ride a street bike that barely gets dirty. So
yeah, no. I think it was $1 Million Bogan when he did his Alaska trip on the Dalton that they overheated the bike because that same stuff got caked into their oil coolers on there. I think they were on some kind of Harley Bagger. I don't know which model.
He rides a Road King, and he has for several years now. So he's got a non-faired bike. It's got a windscreen in the front and the handlebars and everything, but not a fairing. But it does have the saddlebags, so it is a bagger.
Yeah, but this was a rental that he did because he rented it. I remember watching the...
Well, if it wasn't his bike...
In exactly the road that I was thinking of on the Dalton Highway, which is notorious for it, they caked up the oil cooler on one of the Harleys and overheated it. And when I saw the Pan America has the oil cooler in the same spot, I'd be really concerned about that.
So he typically rides a Road King. Other than that, I've seen him ride a Sportster in India, but never anything else.
And for everybody who does think about ordering one of those, order the spoked wheels. Those are a great addition. They did a great job on them with the perimeter spokes so that you can run a tubeless tire. Absolutely.
Oh, I see
check
right
the ball
there
on that one when you go to the Harley dealer.
Oh, very cool. Look at that. Yeah, because typically now my Vulcan 800 is a spoked wheel, or has spoked wheels, and it has them in the center here. So I run tube tires. That's interesting.
Because the air can leak out through there. But when they put them on the outside like that, there's no holes in the center, so you can still run a tubeless tire in it.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Thanks for that information. That's it. I'm putting Harley wheels on my Vulcan.
Yeah, no, those are great. That's a great set of wheels. They picked the perfect setup for that.
And while we're talking accessories, I noticed that they've got not only hard luggage here, but they have three kinds. They have a soft luggage, a hard luggage that's sport/street, and then they've got these aluminum side cases and top case all available from
Yeah.
the parts and accessories catalog. And I wish I could show you my catalog. It's about this thick.
And you know what? I can tell you because I spotted this. I would almost guarantee you that those side cases, the aluminum ones, are made by SW Motec. I recognize the rack design, and that means they're a top-notch, one of the best out there. They did
So
a
what you're
great
saying
job
is
with that.
Harley partnered with good people?
Yeah, and I was really impressed to see that they partnered with RevIt for their apparel line, which is, again, top-notch. I ride a lot of RevIt gear. I love it. I wear their gloves. I wear their jacket. They make absolutely top-notch gear. And again, if you're a Harley guy and getting into this, go buy that stuff. Harley branded, RevIt's one of the top brands. Absolutely perfect pick for doing something for Harley.
You mean my Harley branded t-shirt isn't going to give me any protection?
No, it's going to give you some protection, but
Yeah, 3 inches worth of asphalt before it bleeds through, right?
yeah, how far down a gravel road do you want to slide in your t-shirt is the real question.
Yeah, not very far. For anybody that's watched any videos on my channel, I always wear jeans, boots, and a jacket, and of course my signature half helmet so I can smoke my cigar.
Yeah, and you'll notice if you go check out my channel, you'll see that I am all the gear always. I always have the pants, the big off-road boots with all the ankle protection, the jacket, everything.
And I'm going to leave a link in the description below to Dewey's channel. Go check it out. Dude has some great editing skills, and he goes to some scenic places. So all of his videos are well worth a watch, or two, and a subscription. Go check it out. You'll like it. I guarantee it. Money back guarantee if you're not happy.
But I'm worth what you pay for it.
Exactly. Just like what they paid to watch this video with you and me, BSing.
Yeah.
So we've talked about style. We talked about performance. We sort of skipped around the elephant in the room, and that's Jason Momoa. The actual elephant in the room I wanted to talk about was price. And you can see here that the Pan America starts at just over 17 grand. And it's a dollar menu item off of 20 for the special. Let's go look at the competitors since I have all these pages up. And do you know how much the 1250 GS starts out at? 18
Well,
grand.
up there. So 18, yeah. And then the GSA is, I think, another 3 grand over that or something or so.
Okay.
The Adventure.
So we've got a value proposition against what I thought was its major competitor, but you clued me into the Super Tenere and the KTM and the Ducati. So let's take a look at those. I've got the Yamaha here and 16.2. But it's a little bit heavier. And did we look at horsepower on this one?
It's a lot less horsepower. This is the least horsepower in the group. I want to say this one's somewhere around 110 to 120. So it's a lot lower in the horsepower.
They don't even list it. Yeah, they don't even list it here.
One of your viewers will fact check me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm guessing it's somewhere in the 110 to 120 range.
All right, there you have it. If you know the Super Tenere's power and torque figures, leave a comment below and tell Dewey how wrong he is. But, okay, so we have a cheaper bike that is heavier and less power. And honestly, doesn't do anything for me on the style. This sort of looks like a sport bike with the front end there and the back end. And it doesn't scream off-road to me. And those tires definitely don't fit the bill. Moving on, let's go to the KTM. They're ready to race, according to Dewey. And you've got 18.6, so about $1,200 more than the Harley. But this one you said has more power. It's got a slightly bigger engine. Yep, a little more power. And I don't know how Newton meters compares on torque. Let me do the math. So this engine's a little bigger. It's got 15 more horses, give or take, and 103 foot-pounds of torque. I edited that part out because you shouldn't have to sit through me Googling it. Compared to 94 foot-pounds of torque. So it's a little higher on power and torque, which you should expect from a slightly bigger V-twin. Interesting that KTM has a V-twin here. I thought those were only used in big, heavy, fat cruisers. This bike's a little more expensive. Did you figure out the weight on this one?
I don't know it off the top of my head. I would guess this one's going to come in the lightest of the group, though. KTM usually is one of the lightest.
I'm looking at 478 pounds, unfueled. So, yeah, probably about 510 total. instead of the
Yeah.
559 for the Pan America Special. So yeah, that's quite a bit lighter. But this brings up a good point. The Pan America has the engine as a stressed member of the frame, which I thought was very interesting because Harley doesn't do that. Harley always does frame with the down tubes and the neck and everything else, and then the engine gets bolted in. But in this case, they mentioned in the video that they made the engine strong enough to handle the weight of the bike, which I think is really awesome and really fits into what you'd expect out of an adventure bike. You know, how many pounds can you save by dropping off, you know, whatever frame parts usually hold the engine, because the engine holds itself.
Yep. And it's pretty standard. I'm pretty sure the BMW and the Multistrada both do stress member or partially stress member construction.
I'm pointing down. Let's put a comment below. Prove me wrong. Where's the change my mind meme? I'll have to throw one up. So last up, we have the Ducati, and this one doesn't have a starting price.
Than all of them.
There's no starting price. You can't afford it. But
if you have to ask.
It's got the horsepower of the KTM. It's got the torque of the Harley. It's got a seat height that I'll do the math. So it's got the power of the KTM, the torque of the Harley, and a seat height somewhere in the middle because it's about 33 inches. Yes, I did the math again. Thank you, Google. And no starting price. It's got to be somewhere, right? We got to see what this Ducati costs, right? So what was your favorite part of riding around Morocco?
It was being in a completely different culture. No matter where you go in North America, it always feels kind of North American-y. I don't know. We'll have to edit something in there that sounds very North American, no matter where you go. And going into a predominantly Muslim country in Africa was quite culturally very different, but everybody was incredibly friendly, incredibly hospitable. It was really great to meet the people and get to see the different culture and all the history, because, you know, even stuff in Europe is old, stuff in North America is not old, but you get to stuff in Northern Africa and you get really, really old.
That sounds like a blast. I've never left the country, so the farthest I've gone is Alaska, and that was far enough for me.
Well, buy yourself a Pan America and ride to Africa, man.
Yeah, I mean, well, they did say in the video you have to find road to ride on, and is there a road to Africa? I don't think so.
Well, you know, with a long boat ride in the middle, there is.
Okay, so you heard it here first. You can ride a Pan America to Africa. If you sink your Pan America, don't come crying to me. And I can't find a price on the Ducati. I even went to configure and it wouldn't tell me. So, like I said, the Ducatista will tell us what the price is, but I'm guessing it's 21 grand.
21,995.
Okay, so we got a price on the Ducati finally, 21,995. Whew. All right, so that definitely comes in with the Ducatista tax.
Yeah.
As Yemi Noob calls them, the Biscotti boys. Yeah, you pay tax for that.
And when you figure in the lattes per mile cost, the cost of ownership is quite high on a Ducati.
Yeah, especially if you're going for the PSLs. I heard that somewhere. It's a pumpkin spice latte. I don't know.
No, you know, I like it like I like my women, smoking hot.
Okay, you heard it here, ladies. If you're single, drop Dewey a comment. I think he's single too, so maybe not. I'm not sure. We don't really talk about that. We're dudes.
Well, you don't get away with a beard like this if you're not. We're quite honest.
Hey, anybody that's been following my channel saw the big beard that I grew last winter in the one picture slideshow thing I did, and oh boy, my wife was not happy with me. She's like, no, don't even come near me with that thing. There's a small animal going to crawl out of it. No small animals were harmed in the making of my beard, though. All right, so we covered price. We covered the competition. We covered the one thing that could cripple this bike off-road. And I think we got all the stats. Is there anything else you want to say about the Pan America? Are you going to buy one? Are you going to buy one?
I don't know that I'm going to buy one, but I'm not buying anything right now. I think that I was actually pleasantly surprised with the amount of thought and engineering and speccing of this that they went into. I'm not going to lie, when I first heard that Harley was going to make an adventure bike, I laughed a little bit.
I think a lot of people laughed with you.
And the specs on it are miles ahead of where I thought it would be. And I think that they are onto something. It's going to be convincing people to take it seriously and give it a try, I think. But I think the big thing they can do is, I think there's a lot of people that are Harley brand loyal, that this opens up a new segment to them and a new type of ride that they might not have thought of, and it's going to give them a new experience if they go get one of these bikes and try to take it someplace that they wouldn't take their other bikes. Unless
you're $1 Million Bogan, in which case you're going to take a Pan America and ride down the highway on it, because that's not what it was designed to do. Did you see the episode where he rode on the beach and dumped it and got it stuck and everything? That's funny. I got my BMW stuck on a beach in Morocco. I went riding in sand. I had a great ride, and then getting off of the beach, once you get out of where the water has gotten, it gets really, really soft. And when you have 140 horsepower on tap, and I gave it the gas and just spun the rear tire and dug myself into a hole, and it just came to a stop. I got off the bike. The bike was still standing straight up in the hole that I had dug. Oh my goodness, that's horrible. You just buried it right down past the axle then. Oh.
Yep.
Now, you know what? I think the Pan America is a great thing. It's a great time. The adventure bike market is taking off. It's continuously, year over year, more popular. And I think Harley getting into that is a good segue for them. Don't make two-wheeled scooter things. Harley, don't do that. Make the Pan America. I think it's a great time for them to be building an adventure bike. Like you said, I agree. They did their homework. They're at least class competitive, and they come up really with a value proposition. So I think based on my first video and the assumptions I made, I think most of them came true. And I think what really surprised me was the adjustable suspension. I think that's phenomenal. They need to put that on their touring bikes next, because short guys like me have problems flat-footing a big 900-pound cruiser. So that would help. But I think that the Pan America looks good. It has promising performance figures. It's got the horsepower and torque. And really, when you throw that together with the price, the Harley guy that's got the CVO Limited, or he's got the Street Glide, but he wants to do different kinds of riding, but he still wants to tour, and he's got access to that parts and accessories catalog, I think he's going to go through there and, hey, dealer, order me one of these, because then he's keeping all his bikes in the same brand. He doesn't have to go to a different dealer. Everybody knows that you can't throw a baseball without hitting a Harley dealer, at least if they watched that one video I put up. And, at the end of the day, there's something to be said for having a close dealer or a mechanic close by that can work on your bike, right? And somewhere that you can buy these tchotchkes and knickknacks and merch. And, Harley's a t-shirt company that sells bikes. Well, maybe they can finally change that vision, that perception people have of them. I think it's not going to sell well, at least at first, but I think that it has the potential to, because they've done all the legwork to make sure that the first time out of the gate, they've got a compelling product. If the reliability is there, it's really a crapshoot, because Harley's they've been in the crapper for so long now financially that they need a home run to not go through more AMF years. And really, this is, I think, their last shot to do it. They teased the custom cruiser in this reveal video, which I thought was okay, but really, I came there to see the Pan America. The custom cruiser is probably something I'd buy first, because I don't envision going off-road. But I am very interested in the Pan America because it checks all the boxes. And if people can ignore brand for half a second and you can get a year or 2 years worth of reliability stats out there, I think Harley might actually have a home run on their hands.
Yeah, and I think you might want to give it a try. You might be pleasantly surprised at what a good touring bike it is with the added height and the suspension travel that gives you the comfort. It may just be a great touring bike on its own.
I'll just need stilts to ride it. I did notice one last thing, that it has 135 mile an hour top speed. They mentioned it in the video. I took notes. So, hey, if you enjoyed this video, leave it a like and leave a comment below if you learned anything. And especially go check out Dewey's channel. He puts out some awesome content. What do you do, every other week, Dewey?
Yeah, I'm doing every other week right now. I may start doing every week come summertime when I'm able to get a lot more footage during any given week. But I'll see when I get there.
I think I'm pushing him towards that with my twice a week schedule. But hey, seriously, if you like the video, leave it a like. If you like the Pan America or you have any other thoughts on it, leave us a comment below. And until I see you again, keep the shiny side up. Dewey, sign off.
This is Dewey checking out.
There you go. Hey, have a great rest of your day.